The Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky, and this is a continuation of Chapter 8. Question: what is the Earth? Is it alive? Where does organic life end and Earth begin? Answer: organic life is a quite definite thing. Animals, plants, men, and all microorganisms. As to the Earth, it is certainly a living being, only on quite a different scale. Nothing is dead in nature, only some men are dead. Question: what is the form of communication between organic life and Earth? Answer: there are many forms of communication. When you inhale air, for instance, this is communication. We are here on Earth as part of organic life. Organic life is under certain influences coming from all the planets, and since we are a part of it, these influences affect us too. We are also under certain influences coming from the Sun, the Milky Way, and maybe under the influences of all worlds, although naturally, influences of all worlds on any individual man are very small. We do not know much about influences coming from the moon, but we do know that it plays a very important part in organic life, and without understanding how everything is connected and in what way the life of man on Earth is connected with the plants and the sun, we cannot understand man's position and his present life in it. For instance, without this diagram, it is impossible to understand that man lives in a very bad place in the universe, and that many things which we regard as unfair, against which we rebel and try to fight, are really the result of this position of organic life on Earth. If we were on the moon, it would still be worse. There would be no possibility of development. On the Earth, there is a possibility of development. We can develop in certain ways. We can develop certain parts in us. Very little of planetary influences comes to us as individuals. Generally, planetary influences are only felt by masses of people. Thus, they are responsible for wars, revolutions, and things like that. An individual man is very little under planetary influences because the part that can be affected by them is undeveloped. This undeveloped part is essence. To a certain extent, man is also under the influence of the sun, and he can be under much higher influences if he develops higher centers and becomes connected with him. So development means passing from one kind of influences to another kind. At present, we are more particularly under the influence of the moon. We have to become more and more conscious to become under higher influences. Question: in what way are we under the influence of the moon? Answer: the moon plays a very important part in life, or rather the life of organic life, on Earth. The moon controls all our movements. If I move my arm, it is the moon that does it, because without the influence of the moon, it cannot happen. The moon is like the weight of an old-fashioned clock, and organic life is like the clock mechanism, which is kept going by this weight. The action of the moon on our life is purely mechanical. It acts by sheer weight and receives higher energies, which little by little make it alive. If you remember the 4 kinds of energy: mechanical energy, life energy, psychic energy, and conscious energy, then the moon acts with mechanical energy like a huge electromagnet, attracting the matter of the soul. When it gets this matter, its temperature changes. The moon is in a very low state, much lower than the Earth. All our mechanicalness depends on the moon. We are like marionettes, moved by wires, but we can be more free of the moon or less free. When we understand that, we will understand the way to become more free by not identifying, not considering, struggling with negative emotions, and so on. At present, we cannot move a step without the energy of the moon. The wires cannot be cut at once, for then the marionettes would simply collapse. It is necessary to learn to move first. All sleeping people are under the influence of the moon. They have no resistance. But if a man develops, he can gradually cut some of the wires that are undesirable and can open himself to higher influences. In this way, he can become free of the moon, if not fully, at least considerably more than he is now. Question: do lower influences come from the moon? Answer: more mechanical influences. If a man is completely under the influence of the moon, he is a machine. Question: do you mean that the moon affects us both physically and psychologically? Answer: the physical influence is different. This is normal. It is when the moon begins to affect our mind and emotions that it is wrong. It happens only when a man is cut off from higher influences, but nothing can cut him off from them except himself. Question: could you tell us more about the idea of feeding the moon? Answer: first, I must ask you a question. What does this idea signify to you? What is the chief principle that you see in it? Question: I do not understand the first principle of it. Answer: you see, you can look at it from different sides, even when you hear about it for the first time. When you see the right principle, then everything becomes clear. When I first heard it, certainly it seemed very strange, but at the same time I saw that the principle behind it was that everything is connected, that things do not exist separately, that in a certain way organic life connects earth and moon. Question: does the moon actually cause human catastrophes by requiring certain food for its own being? Answer: the moon does not cause catastrophes. We are guilty ourselves. It is no use trying to accuse the moon. Suppose we neglect to repair a wall and it falls. Whose fault is it? It falls because of the physical laws. But at the same time, it cannot be the fault of the physical laws. If cosmic influences fall on the right soil, there are no catastrophes, just as a wall does not fall if we repair it. But of course, there may be big catastrophes that we are not affected by. There may be big catastrophes that are not affected by our attitude. Question: why is it that planets affect man in the mass and not individual man? Answer: because the part of man which can be affected is either very small and undeveloped or too covered by personality. Personality reflects all these influences, and man is under the law of accident. If man lived in his essence, he would be under planetary influences, or in other words, under the law of fate. Whether this would be to his advantage or not is another question. It may be better in one case and worse in another, but generally better. Planetary rays cannot penetrate personality. People in the mass are affected by planetary influences in certain parts of themselves, which are always there. Most people in a crowd are men number one, that is, men living in instinctive and moving centers. And the chief motive power of man number one is imitation and imagination. When people are under the power of imitation and imagination, they very easily accept mechanical influences. They begin to imitate one another, and so it produces a big effect. When people live as part of a mass, nobody can help them. They are so intermingled that you cannot separate one from another. On the level of the mass, they are all the same. People can only expect to meet with favorable influences when they rise from the mass, not before. Influences affecting the mass are only unfavorable. They are influences that keep it down. There are favorable influences that help individuals to get out, but they can only help men who stand a little above the mass. We can expect help, but only on a certain level. For what would be the value of our efforts if someone would take us by the ears and drag us up? If we become conscious, it is the same as having will on a higher level. And if we can do, we can isolate ourselves from many of these planetary influences which affect the mass. Question: is our aim to develop ourselves so that as individuals we can come under planetary influences? Answer: it will not be individual influence. It will be in accordance with your type. Individual men are different according to their essence. Essence, or type of man, is the result of planetary influences. Planets make us what we are. Excuse me. Excuse me. Different combinations of planetary influences make different essences.